Hello and welcome to the Untypical OT Talks. These are going to be slightly different, these little episodes. So I've rebranded, given them a different name. I've given them a different name called the Untypical OT Talks to Herself. Partly because I thought I'd come on and do some small little podcasts with just me talking. So I bring on guests that are going to be great. And we've got loads coming up that I'm really, really looking forward to talking to. But also, I thought people might want to know a bit more about me and some of the thoughts that I've got and the reasons behind why I do what I do. So I'm going to do these little mini podcasts that I'm going to put out every couple of weeks. I think I'd like to, but we'll see how that goes. This is going to be me talking about me, my experiences as a parent, as a dyslexic parent, as a parent in a neurodiverse family, all sorts of things. So today, I thought I would kick off with, where did the Untypical OT come from? Why was the Untypical OT started? So I suppose the background behind that is I've been an OT now and for those of you that haven't heard of the word OT before, occupational therapist. So I've been qualified as an OT now since I was those young days when I was 21, 22. So we're talking about, you're going to work out how old I am now, about 25 years ago now. I've had lots of experience in lots of different jobs and moved around a lot. And I think the thing that always comes to mind was wherever I worked, it was always very much about wanting to do things differently. One, not having the confidence to do that. And when I look back now, and I'm going to do a podcast later on this one, is now knowing that I was dyslexic. So I didn't ever have the confidence. And my computer is absolutely littered with things of me, ideas that I've had over the years that have never gone anywhere. They've just sat on my computer, not really doing very much. And I thought about it, I looked back and realised that in about, I think even as early as kind of 1995, I was in a job, I was working in CAMS, and I found and came across recently some leaflets that I had been making, trying to create my own business. But I never really thought I had the skills to do it. So it kind of got put on the back burner. I even went as far as making some little business cards, which I've still got. Um, and funny enough, when I look back, even then, back in 1995, we're taking nearly 20 years ago now. 20 years? 90, it can't have been 1995. What are we in now? 2024, 2005. It's in 95. I'm still in school. 2005. Can you see the problem I have with numbers? And even back then, as early as then, I was looking at how I could help with behaviour. And that was my interest, my special interest was in behaviour. But I never went anywhere with it. I never did anything with it. I always thought it wasn't good enough. The OTs, that's not what OTs did. That I needed to stay within what I had as a very preconceived idea about what OT did, and that was working with children. That's what I was doing at that time. I was employed by a health service in some way, shape, or form. And I was thinking way outside the box, and that there was something wrong with me, basically, was my feeling about where I came from with that. Kind of fast forward, I went through having two kids, a relationship breakup, and I had a son who was struggling at school, and his mental health was declining. I was trying to parent him and my other son, and I was struggling. I was really struggling. And we went through all the processes, and I'll talk probably later on about where I went with that and ended up, and tribunals and all that kind of stuff, and the effect that had on me. But what happened eventually was he had to be educated at home. So he's now on an EATOS package, and that's educated other than at school. So we were unable to find a school that could meet his needs and his mental health needs, and he's now educated from home. So I had been working during lockdown online doing reports and the very kind of typical OT stuff that you would expect from a paediatric OT. I was doing assessments for EHCPs. I was doing assessments for tribunal. I kind of always felt like something was missing. It wasn't quite what I wanted to do. I found it very stressful. And then when I went through tribunal myself, it became even more stressful to go back and work with families. Although I was desperate to help them, the trauma of going through tribunal for me was so big that going back to work with families in that position that I had been in was too difficult. On top of that, we came out of lockdown and parents understandably were moving back towards having assessments and support for their kids in face-to-face. My son was now at home and I couldn't offer that anymore. So we went through a period of me trying to find a way that I could work, how I could be an OT. And I thought I couldn't. I thought, this is it, done, can't do it. We were struggling for money. I was on benefits. And it was tough. It was really tough. And then I did some training and had this idea of creating an online business and how could I do that with parents. And that's basically where the Untypical OT came from. And the words kind of untypical came from the fact that I was newly diagnosed, although I'd always known I was dyslexic. I was newly diagnosed as dyslexic, and it changed my life. It just gave me the confidence to say, oh, that's why I find that difficult. Oh, that's why my brain does that. Oh, it was like finally all the puzzle pieces fitting together, and it made sense. It also gave me the confidence, which sounds really weird, but it did. It gave me the confidence to go out there and be me and be okay with that. And that I might not be typical in what I do, and the way that I think, but actually that was okay. There were people looking for not the typical. And what is typical anyway? I think through my career and even personally, I don't know anyone typical. I don't know anybody that's what they call normal. What is normal? I've never come across it. Don't even know if it exists, that we're all aspiring to this typical normal existence, and actually every single one of us, we know every single one of us is unique. So anyway, that's me waffling on about where the Untypical OT came from. And I think what I had to shift was that there's a very is the way people think about OT. And some of that started with me watching a video by Rhiannon Chris, who's an Australian OT, interviewing, as she put, some of the living greats in the world of occupational therapy. And it reignited in me why I wanted to be an OT, what I loved about it. And actually what I loved about being an OT was it gave me this great, huge scope and flexibility to work with people that I kind of somehow, I think, going through the systems, going through health and working in education, I had become so restricted to this is what you need to do. You need to do an assessment. It has to set these goals for educational health. You have 6 sessions to provide it in. I'd lost being an OT. I'd lost the loveliness of being an OT. And I wanted to change that. I wanted to fall back in love with being an occupational therapist. And the change has given me that. So I started the Untypical OT, and I knew that I wanted to stay around behaviour, because behaviour is my special interest. I love watching. I'm a people watcher. I love knowing why and thinking about why things might happen. I've also got that type of brain. So I now know that my brain is great at, okay, here's something, but why is that happening? And my brain goes ding, 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 goes off in all these different directions. But that actually works really well. So I'm now playing to my strengths. And I think Chris Bonello talks about that, about, play to people's strengths. Don't talk about the deficits all the time. We need to start talking about how we can play to people's strengths. So I realised that's what my brain was really great at. It was great at finding ways around things. And that's always been a strategy of mine. If things get really tricky, I will find a way around it somehow. I'll work a way around it. And it can be sometimes a bit obscure, but I will find a way around something. And I don't mean that in a kind of manipulative type of way. It's more, how can I make things different? Or I'll think of something from a slightly different angle. And lots of my friends used to come up and go, I've got this thing going on with my kids and I don't know why they're doing it. And I go, oh, have you thought about that? And they go, oh, I haven't thought about that. And it's because I would come at it from a different angle. I'm not special, but I just would come at it from a different angle. That's just where my brain went. And I thought, well, how can I make the most of that? How can I use that to help other people? So I knew I wanted to work around behaviour, and that's integral to what I do. But the other big thing for me that I wanted to talk about and help was help parents. And I had been through a really, really hard time with my son and his own mental health, but also my own mental health of having to navigate systems and tribunals. And, I won't be talking to many of you out there that don't know the stresses of trying to navigate education and health with a neurodivergent child. On top of that, I was dyslexic. So a lot of the stuff, as you kind of will probably well know as well, is all written. So the stress of dealing with emails and having to put things in writing and triple and quadruple checking all my emails and having to go through EHCPs and all that, everything to do with that was absolutely ginormous, huge, and placed a huge amount of strain on not only on me, but on our whole family unit. So, quite spectacularly, I crashed into burnout, and I burnt out as a parent. And if I'm honest, still recovering from that burnout. I've got strategies in place now, and I know, and I can spot my burnout coming if things start to rise up. I've got systems in place that I can either get going and start on my own, or I've got a support system around me that will kick in and they will kind of prod me in gently in the right directions. They know how to help me. But I do remember there was a point in that with everything where it was and how difficult things were. And I was sitting, I was standing to begin with in the kitchen. Don't remember why I was in there. And nothing particularly had happened. There hadn't been a moment that had completely broken the camel's back, as the saying goes. I don't remember what it was. I just remember being in the kitchen and having this overwhelming sense of, I can't cope. I can't do this. And ended up sat on the kitchen floor in floods of tears, thinking, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. I'm very good at looking for help when I need it. I had gone through, I was accessing all the support that they say is available in CAMHS and all the support with, wherever. I'd gone through all of that and it wasn't helping. And I thought, I don't know what to do. And at that point, I think I thought, I've got to change something. And I had been looking for other people to help me. And there is a need for that. I'm not I'm not saying that there isn't a need for that. But actually, the biggest change for me came when, and it was CAMS, a couple of days late after the crisis had been, and I'd already called asking for help. And they did ring back to say, the first question they asked me was, "Are you okay?" And it was the first time somebody had asked me if I was okay. And it was at that point I thought, oh my God, this is what it's about. I can get the support for my son. I can go out there and jump up and down and get the support and fight for it and get it. But actually, at the end of the day, all those people go home. At the end of the day, those people don't know my son as well as I know my son. At the end of the day, I've got to put in place all these strategies and support him and co-regulate him and da, 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 da. So if I'm not okay, how is this ever, ever, ever going to happen? And I'm not okay. I'm completely and utterly burnt out. And I just thought, sitting on the kitchen floor, I don't want any other parent to feel like this. It is hard enough parenting without hitting burnout, without feeling that we don't have the capacity to be the parent that we want to be. And I don't think in all the years that I have worked with families, I have ever come across a parent that didn't want to do better, know more, have the answer, see their child do brilliantly. And it just was so strong, the feeling in me, that I thought I have to start talking about it. So I started to talk about it on the internet. And working on the internet is tough for me because I hate writing and it takes me forever. So the posts that you see, if you follow me on my Insta or on my Facebook or places like that, those posts take me forever, even with the support of AI, because AI still doesn't sound quite right for me. So I write it, I tend to empty my brain into AI and it helps me organise it. But then I have to go back and reword it anyway because it doesn't feel quite right. It's not me talking. And I think I've been told in the past, I have quite a unique way of writing. I think I write as I speak. So obviously AI doesn't always get that right for me. But those posts take forever, forever and ever and ever. And I started to talk about parental burnout. And I'd heard of things like, and worked with lots of kids with, in autistic burnout. I'd worked in the past in adult mental health with, work burnout. So I knew kind of the background and what strategies. I'd never heard anyone talk about parental burnout. And I started to talk about it thinking, I'm going to put this out here because you know what it's like. Sometimes as you start talking about it, you think you're the only one in the world. And I had this overwhelming response on social media that other parents going, I know how you feel. I'm either in it, been there, done it, heading towards it, can't get out of it, frightened of it. Huge amounts of stuff. So I suddenly thought, okay, this is where I need to go. This is where I need to be. So that kind of leads me on to where I am now. So the Untypical OT Talks podcast came because I'm crap at writing. Let's just be honest. I have a very unique style. Obviously was undiagnosed, but guessed I was guessed I was dyslexic. And used to use dyslexia, as I used to say to people, I'm dyslexic, as a protection. So if people kind of would comment on the way that I had written something and I was super anxious about how anybody looked at anything I had written all the time. And during my career had people make lots of comments around things that I had written in a variety of different positions, from when I was newly qualified up to kind of running a team. And I'd have people make comments about spelling or whatever. And I used to use the diagnosis or the term I'm dyslexic as a protection, to protect myself. But once I got the the diagnosis, it led me to understanding, because actually dyslexia is so nuanced. It's so my dyslexia might show up to somebody, can show up differently to somebody else's dyslexia. And people often think, oh, dyslexia is just you can't spell. And actually it's way more complicated than that. And I'll do another post on that one, because I think I've got lots to say about dyslexia now. But basically the podcast came about because I was struggling with the social media posts, and I didn't know what to write in them. And I knew what to write. That's not right. I've got a billion ideas, but I was really struggling to get them down and written. So we were out. I don't even know if we'd been out on the motorbike. I can't remember. We were at Motorbike Cafe. And for those of you who know me, know that I love motorbikes. So I was at a Motorbike Cafe, and I was sitting talking to my partner. And I can't remember what we were talking about, but he said something and I went, blah, 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 blah. And he went, that's it. That's what you need to do. You need to talk, Liz. So we kind of talked about it, and I've never, podcast was fairly new to me. And he said, we talked about it, and we thought, okay, well, why don't I try a podcast? And that's where the podcast has come from. So the podcast came from me wanting to get a message out. It came from me wanting to support parents and carers of kids with additional needs. It came from a need for me and a confidence from me in thinking that I've got something to say. I actually have got something to say, and this is a way that I can do it. And I love talking to people. So if people interest me, I really enjoy talking to them. I hope that comes across in the podcasts. So that's where it's come from. This is where it's all come from. I thought this is going to be a quick 10-minute podcast, and I think I've now gone on for a lot longer than that. But what I'm planning to do, if you'll stay with me, is I'm going to continue to invite the guests. So the guests will be there every 2 weeks. And there's some brilliant, not even some, they're all brilliant. I've got great guests who have already been coming, lined up, already recorded. I've been blown away by the guests that have agreed to come and chat. And in between those, my aim is to do the Untypical OT talks to herself. And this feels quite odd, chatting to myself, but I hope people might find them a bit useful. That's all. And it might get to give you a bit more of a feeling of who I am and my background and where I've come from. So I've got a whole list of subjects and topics that I'm going to talk about. I hope they'll be interesting to you. And yeah, if you're interested and you want to follow along, give me a subscribe on one of the platforms that I'm on. So it's on the Apple, it's on Spotify, it's on YouTube. The video will be out on YouTube. But you can also find me on my socials. So the Untypical OT Talks, and I'm on, which ones am I on? I always forget. So I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm on TikTok. Although TikTok is it's not my most comfortable platform, but I am on there and I'm trying it. So if you want to give me a follow on one of those, come follow me. I've got some stuff out as well at the moment. So I have got a parental burnout workshop for £7, which is available for a download and recording. You can find that on my Linktree. And I have got a short course for parents burnout. It's £47, and in that you get 4 recordings, get all the handouts, and it's all stored in a lovely portal just for you in your own section. It's just £47. And just coming up in this month in January, which will be available soon, will be a free PDF coming out soon about behaviour. Working title at the moment is, what was it? The Foundations to Behaviour, which I hope will be really helpful for parents, professionals, anyone when you're thinking about behaviour and how to support behaviour. So that's the first one. The first one of the Untypical OT talks to herself. I've managed to talk for quite a long time. I thought I'd managed 5 minutes, but I've done all right. Um, yeah, I will see you guys soon. It was really nice. I've enjoyed having the chat actually. It's been easier than I thought. So hopefully, next one, what did I have for the next one? I've got it written down. My ruffling papers. What am I talking about next time? Next time, I'm going to do a recording on am I the perfect parent? So I've asked everybody else. I'm going to put the same questions to myself and ask, am I the perfect parent? So make sure you tune in, come back for the little snippets, and yeah, I'll catch you soon.